Okay, guys. So yeah, look, Sunil, thanks very much for inviting us on this evening. Really appreciate it, giving us this platform to speak to your Property Millionaire Mastermind group. It's an honour to be able to come on here and do that. And I'm sure, Harry, you feel the same way.
Yeah,
but I won't speak for Harry. I'm joking.
Looking forward to it tonight. We're going to share some good information, some new information that we haven't shared on any of our other webinars as well. So
yeah, so stay tuned. As Sunil said, we will give you a special offer at the end that we have put out on our webinars, but we'll extend that to the Property Millionaires community as well on Sunil's request. Okay, so let me get rid of that, Harry, and then we can go into the presentation. Okay, so welcome to the presentation tonight, part of the Property Millionaire Mastermind group. We're going to go through our Airbnb simplified process with you and run through all the slides. Oh, crashed already.
There you go.
Is that it?
Clip. Yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
Right. Do you want to take this one?
Okay. Yeah. So what is Airbnb? So Airbnb is an online travel agent. You've probably heard of it before. It is similar to, it's similar to booking.com. If you haven't heard of Airbnb and you've been under a rock, same as booking.com, same as VRBO. And it is essentially short-term accommodation or holiday lets. And there are currently over now 5.6 million Airbnb active listings. So there's a lot across the world. Yeah. So there's a lot of properties on there. And it's estimated at the moment that from Statistica that 20% of rental properties now, or second properties in the UK, are also holiday lets or Airbnb properties.
So that's really a kind of growing market. And people always say to me, and ever since I started serviced accommodation, people always say to me, look, Dave, there's too many people getting into it. It's the new buzzword. SA is the new thing on the block. But in reality, when we compare ourselves to, the buy-to-lets and to the hotel industry, we're only a very small fraction of that, but it is continuously growing and taking up market share as it grows. And we've seen that across the UK and across the world for a number of years now.
Yeah, more and more people are getting used to holidaying and Airbnb. So as Airbnb grows, the customer base is growing massively as well, because more and more people are understanding it and actually getting to know it.
So Airbnb, you might call it Airbnb, you might call it short-term rentals, serviced accommodation. There's lots of different connotations behind what people call it, but essentially it's all the same. It's all the same sort of stuff. Holiday lets is another one, so on and so forth. So next slide. That's not working, is it? Here we go. Let's press that one. Okay, so a little bit about me. For those who are not been on Clubhouse, a little bit about me. So I'm the founder of Iconic Group Limited. I started my kind of property career about 13 years ago. Started off very, very wrongly, doing things in the wrong way. I was buying property. My first investment property was a 7-bed HMO that I turned back into a family home, would you believe? I turned it back into a family home, renovated it, sold it, did all the wrong things with it. Sold it, but I still made a profit of around about 30,000. And I was continuously doing that across properties for a number of years, buying them, turning them around, and generally making about 30 grand per property. The HMO that I bought, the investment property, has of course been turned back into a HMO now. And if I know what I knew now with the education that I've had, I'd have kept it as a HMO. I'd have refinanced it, took all my money out, and it'd have been an infinite return for me for the last 13 years. But hey, you don't know what you don't know, right? So fast forward to a couple of years later, so I was flipping properties, then I built a small buy-to-let portfolio, got really sick of ASTs and people being in my properties, not paying me, not being able to get them out, and me paying them to stay in my properties. One in particular property was in the centre of Chester that she showed me around about £4,000 to £5,000, which completely wiped out my profit on that property for the year. And I just got to the point where I needed to change. At the same time, my missus fell pregnant. And at that point in time, I was an operations director for a large home improvement company. And I was working away a lot. So I decided that I needed to get a new cash flowing strategy that could replace my 6-figure salary. And I decided to start getting educated on serviced accommodation. In 2018, I opened up my company, Iconic Serviced Accommodation Limited. And from there onwards, I've kind of grown it to where we are today. Started off with the property that I couldn't get the lady out. Finally started to get her out. 3-bedroom townhouse in Chester. First month it did £3,500, which back then I thought was good. It does a lot more than that now. And I went out and bought another property in so started in the November, went out in December and bought another property, but that wasn't quite quick enough for me to replace my income, because buying property, going through the conveying process, then developing it afterwards was taking time. So I decided to get into rent-to-rents and built up around 13 rent-to-rents in my first year. And that, starting in the November, I had enough income to replace what I needed to get out of my job. Didn't replace the salary, but replace what I needed to get out of my job in the March of 2019. And then I grew my business exponentially after that. So yeah, we're going to go through some of the models that I used to do that later on in the presentation. So stay tuned for that. So now I've got Harry on board and David on board, but you'll see a bit more of that in a second. Go.
There you go. Yeah. So hi, I'm Harry. So I started in property in 2018. When I was 18. Started in property when I was 18. And I started off with WhatsApp groups and looking at deal sourcing. So when I started in property, I realized I didn't have much knowledge, but what I did have was time. So the way I built up my WhatsApp groups was by offering referrals. So I'd get a list of contractors that were looking for work and a list of property investors in the area that were constantly developing and pair them together. I then went on to look for a social media platform to continue the growth of the little side hustle that I was working on at the time, and came across Clubhouse. So I'm not sure if anyone has listened to us on We Talk Property, the property coffee meet, but that was a room that I started where I first met Dave, and Dave pretty much...
That was your first, first member, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I set up, in the new year, I set up a Clubhouse room called the Property Coffee Meet. Didn't expect anyone to join. Dave came along, we got chatting, more and more people started joining, and it just took off from there. From there, I was talking to Dave every day on the Property Coffee Meet. And when we first started, it was 2-3 hours, sometimes 7 days a week for quite a few months. So I started to hear more and more about rent to rent and service accommodation. And it was something that I wanted to explore. So I decided to go for it. Got my first property, which took me 156 calls until I had a phone call with Dave, and then realized that I needed a mentor. So Dave became my mentor, and scaled a service accommodation business from there. I'm now working with Dave and Nokia stays. Yeah.
So sorry, Harry always undersells himself. When I started sort of mentoring Harry, I quickly found out that he was a lot better at most things than I was. And it just made sense for me to take Harry on as a business partner and help us grow our business, because all the stuff that I either didn't want to do or couldn't do, Harry was great at, which it's kind of like a yin to our yang, yin to my yang.
Perfect.
Do you want to talk about Dave?
Yeah. So Dave's not here today, but David Ince is our other business partner. He is, again, sort of completes the triangle that we use for service accommodation. So he was a property professional since 2007.
House building,
house buildings. He ran an estate agents as well. And Dave also has a degree in interior. What is it?
We can never really remember.
Essentially interior design.
He keeps telling us what it is, but we always forget what it is.
It's got a certain word to it before. I'm convinced it's to make it sound better.
It's something to do with film set design, architecture and interior design all in one, but I can never remember what it's called.
So Dave is also responsible, so we'll give him a little shout out now for the layout and design of all the properties, which some of them look absolutely amazing. So full credit to Dave for that. And Dave also handles the operations and is co-founder of the iconic cleaning company. So, I mean, Dave just handles.
He does. He's
a hell of a lot.
He's the integrator, isn't he?
Yeah.
So, yeah. For those who have read Rocket Fuel in the past by Gino Wickman, which is a great book, by the way. Okay, what do we offer? Harry, over to you.
Okay, so what do we offer and how can we help you? So we offer 4 different sort of strategies, and we use service accommodation to be able to offer all these. And we look to work with people, and these are the different things that we use to grow our business. And could potentially help you. So we buy properties. So we purchase properties using the BRR method and then rent them out as service accommodation to get that increased cash flow. We also
probably say that's probably the most lucrative one out of the...
that's probably it is the most lucrative one, and we'll come to some of the numbers of what you guys can achieve by buying using the BRR method and then renting out and service accommodation in a bit. Some low spoilers. We also rent, so we use rent to rent. We offer landlords guaranteed rent and return the property into showroom condition with no void period. So we work with landlords who, like Dave, have had issues in the past or could potentially have issues in the future. They may not have had them yet, but they know these things go on. And we offer landlords a guaranteed rent to make sure they have no void periods, give it back in a showroom condition. So it's not like Dave and it wipes out the profit of the year in some cases. And we also offer no void periods. So we normally go for 3 to 5 year contracts so the landlord knows they're secure. We also manage properties. So we help landlords. So if you guys have properties, but don't have the time to get stuck into the sort of operations and the day-to-day of it, we also manage properties for landlords and help them increase their cash flow without the headache. And we also build our business working with investors. So we offer fixed returns, 10 to 12% per annum. And we also joint venture with the right people.
The right type. It's really important that we only joint venture with the right types of people. And I'll come to that a bit later on, because it's not always a pretty picture. So we'll come to that a bit later. Okay, our journey so far. Let me say this.
Yeah.
Okay, so in our first year, as I said before, I took on a couple of my own properties that I converted into serviced accommodation, and then grew a small rent-to-rent business off the back of that. And then we came to a period of time where, after the first sort of like year to 18 months, the big C hit us, the COVID. It came along, and at the point where, you know, Boris came on the TV and said, look, all leisure and business travel has to stop and hotels have to close. At that point, my kind of heart sunk. And to be honest with you, I was just like, well, that's everything that we do. So we had to think about things differently. And I got onto the team and I said, look, I'll find a way of making sure that this works and make sure that we can thrive through this unfortunate situation. And look, where there is negativity, where there's downs, where there's pain, there's always gain too. And in this situation, in COVID, we actually gained from it. And the reason why we gained from it is because we looked at things slightly differently. We looked outside the box. And I just looked at marketplaces that were going to be busy during COVID. All the hotels had closed down, so key workers and construction was still going on. So I downloaded the key worker register and started going through that and phoning and filling up my properties with people that were working in the area, because they didn't have anywhere else to go. They had no hotels, right? And that was filled about 50% of our properties at the time. And then after that, I moved on to the NHS and did some contracts with the NHS, putting doctors, nurses. When their partners had contracted COVID, they had to isolate from them. So we would put them in our properties and they'd isolate from them from there. So whilst everybody else was kind of handing their keys back in COVID, we were growing, and I was out on Facebook and Instagram and all such, asking people to hand their properties to me because I had more demand than I could more demand than I could supply properties for. So I actually grew our business. I think we doubled or tripled in size through COVID, which was great for us. And then at the end of 2022, when we got out the back of COVID, and it was kind of like the rush came, and it was just a crazy time where, you know, everybody wanted to travel again. Everybody wanted to go around the country. Everybody wanted to get out and holiday in the UK, and they weren't able to go to some countries because they were still closed through COVID. Then everybody used our serviced accommodation units to do that too. Now, one of the things that we did do at the end of 2022 is we could see some cracks in our kind of operation. So we had this kind of real lift up in the size of our business. We then wanted to level that out for a year, just to kind of get on top of the processes and procedures and the systems that we were using. And we actually changed our system during that year to kind of set us up for the future, right? Okay. So how did we get there? So we always make data-led decisions off the back of anything that we take on. So what you might find when you go to a management company or somebody who's doing rent to rent is they will just take on any property. Sunil will tell you, and there may be other people that are on the platform where I've said to them, we can't take that property on because it doesn't work. We absolutely make data-led decisions on everything. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't come to us because, you know, our reputation is more important to us, and wearing this No Key Stays badge and being the brand is more important than just making a few quid off a property that doesn't work.
And I'll add there just a warning to anyone that may be looking to potentially buy some service accommodation deals, whether that be buy to service accommodation or rent to rent. A lot of deal sources will give you a sourcing pack where it says 75% occupancy, and it's normally £120 average daily rate. That isn't.
It's a red flag if you see that.
Yeah, that's a red flag. I mean, out of the portfolio that we operate of a lot of properties, I mean, I'd say 3 of them actually are bang on 75% occupancy, and none of them are 120% average daily rate. So if a sourcer gives you that information, it can sometimes point out that they haven't done any research and it's just what they have plucked.
Bit of that.
So just be careful. As Dave mentioned, fully systemized. So we're constantly updating our systems and processes. I'm sure you've all seen.
When you say we.
Yeah, I am constantly updating our processes, systems, and I'm sure you've all seen a lot of AI tools popping around, and the advances in technology over the last 2-3 years have been massive. So stay ahead of the curve and make sure that our business is as cost effective as possible. We're constantly adding them in.
Okay. And of course, systems are great, but people are more important than systems. We've got a great team of people around us that have been with us for a long time now, and having engaged staff is more important than anything else around you. Okay. Do you want to do this?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay. So our portfolio growth. So the green is our current portfolio. So as you can see, we have a strong haven of about 40 properties in Chester. And then we've also got lots of other single unit properties around the country, as well as 3 apart hotels that we manage. One based here in Chester that we have just opened, one in Southport, and also one in Folkestone. The yellow is what is coming up for us. So we have a lot more single units that we're looking at, but also 2 other apart hotels that are lined up and ready to go. And so Trinity Ave, one's in development, and an office block that we have bought converting into apartments in Chester as well. And then the black is what we have in the pipeline that we've
earmarked.
that we've got coming out. So a few other apart hotels and lots of other single units. So this year, 2023 and going into 2024, we've, as Dave said, reviewed all our processes and systems, which is a constant thing you have to do in service accommodation, unless you're getting someone to manage your properties, which we'll come on to. You've got to remember this is a business, and you've got to treat it like a business, so constantly improving.
Okay, so these are the apart hotels that we've kind of got now, and the stuff that we've got earmarked for the future as well. So we've got, Folkestone 8, which is in Folkestone, Bold Street up in Southport, Trinity Avenue's under construction at the moment. Hunter's Walk, we've just purchased, completed on, and we're just waiting for the planning coming through on that. The Quillets we've just opened in Chester as well. And then we've got another couple of schemes identified, which we're in talks with, and another one in Cardiff today that I've just been speaking to, another guy for 19 apartments down there. So yeah, a lot of stuff coming on, a lot of stuff in the pipeline. What I would say with the apart hotel strategy is that it is not for the faint-hearted. It's not a beginner's. It's you have to be an expert to be running these types of things, and because they're not pretty a lot of the time. They can be really difficult to run. They can be really difficult to build. There's lots of things involved with them. And I'll come to some of the stuff on Trinity Avenue in a minute that's, and share that with the group, which I haven't shared yet with anybody, apart from you, Harry and Dave. You gonna go?
Okay. So again, what strategies do we use? So we're going to go into a bit more detail on these 4 strategies, so that you can, so we can show you how you can sort of make money from service accommodation, Airbnb, depending on where you are in your journey, depending on how much time you have, that's the word, will impact which decision you make. So as mentioned previously, rent to rent. So you can offer a landlord a guaranteed rent, rented off them on a monthly basis and then rented out per night. Owned and JVs. So if you own your property or you're looking to JV with someone who owns their property.
What's a JV, Harry?
Joint venture. So where you work with someone. You're able to run that as service accommodation. So potentially if it's on a joint venture and they don't have the time to do it, you could joint venture and run it as service accommodation with them. Or if you have a property that you own, you can run that as service accommodation. Apart hotels, as Dave just mentioned. So this is where you buy, not for the faint-hearted. This is where you buy or lease a property with multiple rooms or apartments and then open as a self-catering hotel, taking the full communal areas out.
Yeah, the operational space.
Yeah, taking out all the operational space to maximize your revenue,
like the pubs and like the pub and the restaurant. Take that out, put in rentable space in there, and sell it as a room rather than a beverage or a food outlet. Yeah, and then there's management. So this again wouldn't recommend as your first strategy. You need to understand service accommodation and have run your own units, but you can manage people's properties. And this is really, really scalable. And we're going to get into a bit more information of what you can make now. Okay. You're the rent to rent master. Back once again with a renegade master.
Okay, so rent to rent. So rent to rent it's a low investment cost compared to other property strategies. You can expect to pay you can pick up quite a lot of deals where you don't have to put much money at all down. You can get deposit free and rent free periods. And you can also finance some of the furniture. So it can be a really, really low investment cost, but furniture wise for a 2-bed apartment, you can also get into them for 5 to 6K, depending on the quality.
Still, it's not no money down. Okay, which you might see out there. There's generally nothing in properties, no money down. There's been a few in the past that we've done, 1 or 2, but generally you're going to need, especially going into this as a new person going into it, you're not going to go in and do a no money down deal. So this type of stuff here, you do need to get educated on and understand it, not just from a numbers perspective, but how to run that property once you've got it up and running.
Yeah, 100%. So you'll need to identify a property using training or software, negotiate a contract with the owner, prepare your property for the SA market, and then you will be selling the property by the night to a paying guest. Pocket the difference between the rental costs and what you've gathered in booking income. You'll also have to take out your cleaning and bills in there. One golden tip I would say, if you are looking to get into rent to rent, is it is very important when you launch your property. So a lot of people that are starting out rent to rent, maybe you've been trying to find a rent to rent deal for a period of time. What you tend to find is it is a lot harder to find rent to rent properties in April, May, June, July, August, because these are normally in tourist areas, the high season. So everyone's trying to get rent to rents. Everyone's ringing up the estate agents. Everyone's asking. It's a lot easier to find them in October, November, December. However, depending on how seasonal your market is, you may need a bit of cash set aside to cash flow that property into the high season months.
Yeah, if you're gonna launch it in a low seasonal month, you might need to put money into that property. This is a seasonal market. Some you make some months, and some months you can break even, some months you can lose. So you do need to have a look at it over a 12-month period rather than just looking at it in that individual month.
100%.
Okay, so you go. Do you want to go through move our faces out of the way? There you go. Put them at the bottom there.
There you go. Okay, so this is an example of a rent-to-rent property. So this is 8 Wharf View, Chester. So remember the name Wharf View and see if anyone can spot why that's important. So 8 Wharf View, Chester. Strategy that we use, as said, is rent-to-rent. So last 12 months, the occupancy level has been 84% in that property. It's been heavily as well direct bookings. So it's been a real cash cow for us. In booking revenue in the last 12 months, it's turned over 44,000, which has netted us just under £15,500 a year net profit.
And designed by?
Yeah, and designed by David Ince.
Okay, yeah, so this is Yew Tree Avenue. So this is a slightly larger property that we took on a couple of years back, probably 18 months ago now. Again, on the rent-to-rent strategy, we pay around £1,600 a month rent for this property. Since we've had it, it's absolutely flown. The occupancy level on it's been around 83%. Booking revenues around 51,000 for the year, and the net profit on that's around 18,000. So yeah, what's that? About £1,500 a month? Yeah, about £1,500 net. Again, it's been very popular with, and we weren't expecting this. It's been very popular with contractors. Multiple people in the property. 4 to 5 people. Sometimes they share rooms, sometimes they don't. They'll pay, between £50 a night per room to £75 a night per room, and depending on the time of year. And then you end up with these numbers. So
yeah, I would just on Yew Tree as well, just because I think it's important. Again, if anyone is looking to do rent to rent, as Dave mentioned, you need to judge it on a 12-month period. When you're listing your properties and you're comparing them to what other people have achieved, you have to remember that they may have been operating a longer time, and that listing may have a track record. Some properties like Yew Tree, you stick them on and absolutely fly. Other properties you upload onto Airbnb and it takes a few months to get a few reviews in before you start seeing the real figures.
And that's all about building credibility, isn't it?
Yeah.
And in this industry, the credibility is so important, because every person that comes to stay in your property, they get the opportunity to tell you how great it is the next day when they leave, or how bad it is. And if you get a poor review, it can absolutely kill the property off. So it's really important that you keep on top of everything in them, and like we said before, keep them in that showroom condition. Okay, this is Lightfoot Street.
Yeah, so this is another rent to rent. So this is 43 Lightfoot Street. How long is this property?
Oh, I got this. This was one of my first rent to rent properties. So it'll be coming up must be coming up 5 years. It'll be 5 years in February.
Okay, so 5 years. And as you can see, occupancy level 76. So as we said earlier, 75 is not always, it's very rarely bang on 75% occupancy. 76 there. Booking revenue 41,900 and net profit 15,400. Now, as Dave said, this property's been on for 5 years, and this is the beauty of having a property with a really good track record once you've built it up over a number of years. Airbnb and Booking.com and all the other travel agents are going to push it to the top because they know you're a reputable host, and this property's on autopilot, really. Isn't it? It's just,
again, we've spent, you know, a few quid on this property. All the kind of interior design that you can see there has been upgraded from when we first bought it. With rent to rents or with any serviced accommodation property, we call it the Airbnb life cycle. You normally get about 3 to 4 years out of the property before you then need to kind of refresh it again and do something slightly different. So this was done about 18 months ago now, refreshed again by David Ensign. It just looks great. It photographed well, and yeah, it sells really well too. Okay, so on to management.
Okay. Yep. So management, as mentioned previously, management is not something we would recommend jumping into straight away. Look, you are going to make mistakes when taking on service accommodation. It's inevitable. There'll always be little mistakes along the way, and these mistakes you want to be on either rent to rents or
on your own properties.
Yes, on your own properties. You don't want to be managing
your own deals, basically.
Yeah, your own deals. You don't want to be managing a client and making any of these mistakes. Management, however, is low outgoings and very scalable. So essentially you contract, so you agree a management contract with the property owner. You advertise their property as a short-term rental. You're going to be managing the bookings, manage the guests' bookings and all other aspects of short-term rentals. You're going to organize a power team. So you're going to gather a team of housekeepers and maintenance operatives to help you. And you're going to take a share of the revenue. So you'd be taking a percentage of the booking revenue as your fee for managing your client's property. Now, the reason management can be so scalable is if you want freedom and spending less time running your business, you're going to want to add systems, processes, and lots of other tools to make it easier for you. When you build these systems and processes into your own deals, it's very, very easy just to slot another property in and scale quicker.
Infrastructure, isn't it? So yeah, you build up your own portfolio, you build up your own business, you put your systems in. Management then comes after. So I'd never say for anybody. I've seen people go straight into management and fail miserably. But yeah, it's definitely something that you need to build over a period of time. And from the a landlord's perspective, management is a great tool to just hand your property over to somebody and be able to give them, tie into their existing infrastructure, tie into their existing, you know, customer base, and tie into their business. And what I always say with management is, if a management company are not giving you the 15% uplift in, you know, their experience, then they're not worth working with.
100%. And there's lots of other reasons why landlords would hand across properties, which we'll come to.
Okay, so this is Folkestone 8. This is a managed apart hotel that we've got down in Folkestone. 14 apartments, soon to be 16 when they do the basement floor. Occupancy level on this, it's Folkestone, so it's a very seasonal market down there. It does very well in the summer, but it's quite quiet in the winter. The booking revenue on this one, we started it back in January. Was it January this year? Estimated revenue for the year will be around 240,000. Our management fee on that is 36,000, and then we pass on the rest to the owner of that property.
I'll just point out as well on the occupancy level, because I think it's important if you again are going to get into service accommodation, that The occupancy level is an indicator of how much your running costs are going to be. It's not necessarily always an indicator of how much net profit you're going to make. There's some really, really successful operators out there who actually manage or run properties that operate on 30, 40% per annum, and they still make an absolute killing. The reason being is they charge really, really high rates, or it may be a luxury property that's only booked for a week every month, but the amount they charge for those nights massively outweighs their costs. So a lot of people, they see service accommodation deals, as I mentioned before, 75%, 80%, 90% occupancy. The occupancy is just an indicator of how much your running costs are going to be. Don't rely on that number to assess your net profit.
What are the 4 pillars of cost analysis? Come on, son. Don't let me down here. You're training this stuff.
Yeah, I know. Just
4 pillars.
just driven 10 hours and you're blimming quit again.
Occupancy,
Average daily rate, running costs, variable costs.
fixed costs and variable costs.
Fixed
I'll
costs,
give you that.
Fixed
I'll
costs,
give you that.
Variable
You
costs.
passed the test. You passed the test. Yeah. So it's really important when you're looking at serviced accommodation, you've got to take all those pillars into account. So that's your occupancy levels, your average daily rate, because you can have a really high occupancy level, a really low average daily rate, and it doesn't work. And then you've got to mix them up with your fixed cost for the property. So the stuff that's going to cost you, whether you've got people in there or not, you know, like your rent or your mortgage or anything like that. And then also your variable costs, which are generally very high in serviced accommodation. So that's your cleaning fees, linen costs, amenities, all that sort of stuff too. You've got to take all 4 of those into consideration when you are analysing your deals. Yeah.
Okay, so owned. So buy to service accommodation, a lot higher yielding, but it is a slower strategy. So as mentioned, you can use the buy, refurbish, refinance method. However, David Ince loves to be different. So as you can see from the slides,
he buy, refurbish, refinance.
Yeah, so he's called it something completely different just to wind us up. Yeah, so purchase properties, improve them, sell or revalue them, sell them by a nightly basis on Airbnb and booking.com.
I've just realised that says pisser.
Where?
It says pisser.
Oh,
P-I-F-R.
And
it's him all over, isn't it?
So as mentioned, service accommodation could be a really, really good way to increase your nightly cash flow. And look, if you guys have properties at the moment and are debating whether it would work on service accommodation, we have a lot of people tell us that, well, my property's not going to work on service accommodation because it's not by a beach or it's not in a tourist location. Let the data speak for itself, because some of the best operators and best places to operate aren't where you'd expect to be tourist destinations.
Perfect. I just said perfect.
You did, yeah,
Perfect.
That's my word.
Perfect. That's a stalling technique, isn't it? Okay, so here's an owned property. This is so, if you remember at the beginning, I talked about the property in Chester that was a 3-bedroom townhouse that I first started with. And I took it from a buy-to-let. It's a very versatile property, this 10 Wharf View. So I lived in it. I then put it onto a buy-to-let and then moved it into serviced accommodation in 2018. It's like the property that just keeps giving. You know, when you get those types of properties that just anything you throw at it works. So I own this property. I've put a few quid into it to do it up. The occupancy level on this is around 77%. Booking revenue constantly for the last sort of 3 or 4 years has been 45,000. Net profit on that is a little bit higher because my kind of mortgages isn't as high as a rent on that. So it's around it's 22,600 pounds. That's for one property. Okay. I keep losing the thingy here. You take these?
You take this.
You want me to do this, do you?
Go for it.
Okay, right. So apart hotels. So again, not for the faint-hearted. This is an expert strategy that, you know, I wouldn't recommend anybody gets into as a kind of first step. You definitely need to know your onions to be able to run this strategy. So you've got to identify and use multiple data points to find the right building in the right area. Not every area works. And when you're looking at multi-blocks like this and multiple properties under one roof, your data's got to be bang on, because These could be very, very lucrative for you, but they could zap your money so quickly that you won't know what's hit you. Use one of the multiple strategies. So you can do rent to rent on this type of property. You can purchase, you can do a purchase lease option to secure the building as well. There's multiple things that you can do to secure these types of property. There's somebody.
Bit of background noise.
Bit of background noise there. I don't know if that's a question or if someone's needs muting. We'll go with somebody needs muting. Set up and sell, so complete the necessary works and set up the building as an apart hotel. There's lots of different things that go into that, and even the type of property and how type of the criteria. So whether you're going to put how many 1 beds, how many 2 beds. Now, a lot of the time you are restricted by the makeup of the building, but you need to do your analysis and work out what type of properties, or should I put it all studios, or should there be 2 beds studios, 1 beds, 3 beds,
or a mix?
Or a mix. And what we try to do in ours is we have a little bit of a mix in there, and look at the market data, and where we can, we obviously fit with the building, but put in the right makeup of property to maximize the profits on them. Yeah,
and this is, I mean, as Dave mentioned earlier, identifying using multiple data points to find the right building in the right area is key. With apart hotels, people always look at massive schemes that they can introduce into an area, but what they don't realize that they're actually doing is oversupplying a certain type of property. I mean, yeah, you can essentially be bringing a load of studios into a market that's already full of a load of studios and just be competing with yourself and driving your price down. So it's really important, as Dave said, to find which property types work in which areas.
And remaining compliant, again, with the hotel, the apart hotels, paying attention to the compliance and regulations required for paying guests. Or is always you've got to ensure you've got best practice in these, as well as the properties as well. But you do get more on these than you would on a single let. So it's not always pretty. Okay, so this is Trinity Avenue. Now, I bought this property coming up 4 years ago now, and the idea was to purchase the property, turn it into an apart hotel, and get it up and running within a sort of 12 to 18 month period. Well, 4 years on, I'm still sat, and we started the build out back in, was it May? Yeah, we started the build out back in May after a number of years of battling with JV partners and trying to get people off, and just made a load of mistakes on this property. Cost implications on this: when I bought it, it was supposed to cost around 500,000 to develop it. It's actually going to cost me double that now. But again, my outlook on this is I bought it at a great price. I'm going to turn it into 11 apartments, and they're a mix of 1-bedroom studios, 1-bedroom apartments, 2 bedrooms, and there's a nice little penthouse suite on the top, which is a 3-bedroom apartment too. So it will, when I refinance it, it will probably just about wash its face. But yeah, everything is not always pretty. It's given me a lot of sleepless nights, this. Yeah. And that's why I say, when you get into like the development side of things and building these apart hotels, just be sure that you've got the right team around you, and they know what they've done, and they've maybe done it before. I got into this without that, and I paid the price for it too. So there you go. This will be ready in March next year, all being well. I've done it using family investor finance. And yeah, looking forward to getting it open and seeing it in its glory when it's done.
I think I paid the price as well. Listen to you whine for the last few years.
You are. Okay, so why choose serviced accommodation, Harry?
Okay, yeah. Why choose serviced accommodation? How can we help you? So actually, do you want to cover the small business rates?
Yeah. Okay, so on your first, a lot of people may not know this, but when you take your first property on as serviced accommodation, whether that's a a terraced house or a 4-bedroom house, wherever that might be, you can claim on that first property small business rate relief. So you move it from council tax into business rates. And on that particular property, you can zero rate it through what's called small business rate relief. So you save yourself whatever that might be. And it can be, you know, a couple of grand on a lot of properties around the UK. And it's really helped us in certain situations. And remember, that's per business. So if you've got multiple businesses with multiple properties, you can do that per business. Okay. So running your phone, running your properties remotely using your mobile phone, that's over to you, isn't it?
Yeah. So look, Airbnb, service accommodation, holiday lets, it is a business, and it can require a lot more input than your standard buy-to-let, depending on how you're set up. However, there are a lot of systems and tools out there that can do lots of the heavy lifting, and we've actually created a way that you can run your service accommodation business
Through these apps here on the phone.
Yeah, is that focusing?
We don't want it to focus too much, give everything away.
So you can run your business from your phone. Okay. So everyone always looks at service accommodation as, well, it's going to take up loads of time. I'm going to have to be on the properties. I'm not going to be able to go out and enjoy the weekends. Like, that isn't the case. You can automate.
Well, it is the case if you don't automate and systemize.
It is, yeah, it is the case if you don't automate and systemize, but you can automate and systemize your business. So don't let that put you off.
Mm-hmm. So also in this industry, you need a lot of connections as opposed to lots of capital. So as we've mentioned before, you can get into your rent-to-rent strategy, you can get into managed as well once you've built your business behind you. And there's a lot of really lucrative strategies that you can build off the back of this fantastic strategy. How many times have I said strategy now?
You said, yeah,
quite a few.
Yeah, quite a few.
I apologize.
Yeah, and number 4, so look, if you're sick of void periods or tenant issues, we don't have that in service accommodation.
Well, the landlords that give us their properties on a rent-to-rent basis, they don't have that. Yeah,
the landlords that give us their properties on a rent-to-rent basis, they don't have that. So with a rent-to-rent strategy, one of the advantages you can offer a landlord is, as mentioned, taking it for a long period of time and a guaranteed rent with no void periods.
Normally 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, and no tenant issues. You need to keep your properties in showroom condition. They're going to get cleaned normally twice a week, and you're going to have to be replanning your inventory, etc., and handling some maintenance to make sure that these properties keep booking and you're getting really good reviews.
Why is that?
Why
do we have to keep them in showroom condition?
So that we get really good reviews and we can keep driving revenue and increasing.
Remember what we said at the beginning about people coming into your property, the next day they leave, they can go back on and they can give you a score for that property. So it makes no business sense for us at all to not keep our properties in showroom condition, because if we don't, they drop off a cliff and we lose the business.
Yeah. And in terms of sort of tenant issues, we don't have tenants, we have guests. Mm-hmm. So if a guest doesn't pay, they don't get in. Then they don't get in. And if we need to sort of evict them, we can get them out straight away. Yeah.
Benefits to a landlord. Okay.
Or investors.
Right. Okay. So generally, and I'm going to put a caveat behind this, cash flow for serviced accommodation is way beyond the buy-to-let, as long as it's in the right location and it's the right criteria of property and it's got somebody who knows what they're doing behind it to run that property. It can be very lucrative. Now, the tax benefits that are created from putting your buy-to-let or your residential property into a commercial environment are huge too. So if you have got properties that are in your own name and you're getting hit with Section 24 and not being able to offset the interest, with serviced accommodation, you can actually offset that interest as long as you put it on a managed. You can't do it with rent to rent, but when you put it on managed, because you're getting a flexible income coming into your account and it goes up and down on a monthly basis, it's seen as being put into the commercial environment. You can then offset Section 24. So at this point in time where people have got, rising interest rates, not knowing what to do with them, it can be a lot better for you to put it into that and be able to offset those costs. Again, we've touched base on this before. Your property is kept in showroom condition for the fact that people come in and review that property the next day. If we don't do that, if we don't keep the properties in showroom condition, then your property doesn't,
your business dies.
Your business dies. It doesn't make any business sense not to keep them in that place. So, you know, I mean, I've been in lots of places before where you've got buy-to-lets and, you know, they look after it for 6 months and you go and do your 6-month inspection and you end up, you know, either they end up moving out and you end up spending a lot of money on the property at the end. You don't do that in serviced accommodation. You might put incremental changes in over a period of time, but you know, you don't get that big whack at the end of a tenancy. And again, you don't you enjoy no tenant issues. So, you know, you've got no disputes with ASTs, you've got not if somebody doesn't pay you, you can get them out of your property, or they actually don't get into the property. But if they're in there and they cause a disturbance, you know, and they you know, having drugs in the property or prostitution, which we always get, they just, you know, they're out straight away, and you remove them without any question. Okay, over to you, Sunshine.
Okay, so a few iconic insights. Service accommodation in 2023, everything is changing. So some of you maybe operate in service accommodation and have been over the last few years. 2023 has been a different, very different year. And this is for multiple reasons. I mean, if you just think of, again, the service accommodation boom, which you may have heard about on social media, a lot more people are trying to get started in service accommodation, because when we came out of COVID, there was a great explosion in rates and revenue for a period of time, and people
and also because of the taxes on buy-to-let landlords and all the different stuff that goes around that too. You know, every man and their dog with a 2-bedroom
has an Airbnb,
2 up, 2 down terraced house has turned it to an Airbnb as a test. So yeah, lots of people coming to the market.
Yeah. So just a few facts for you guys to sort of hopefully catch your interest. Digest. Yeah. So there was 394 million nights and experience were booked on Airbnb around the world last year. Okay. And that's continuing to grow. If any of you guys have booked with Airbnb or even booking.com, you can see they're constantly improving their website and their businesses are constantly growing and growing. So this industry is here to stay, and it's only getting better, in my opinion.
Your humble opinion.
My humble opinion. Okay. And there's also, as mentioned, set over 7 million actives. So I know I said earlier that it was 5.6. It's growing now. Over 7 million active listings in over 220 countries on Airbnb in 2022, and we're still growing. In Cardiff in 2022, the average market rent was $1,100 per calendar month, whereas the average short-term rental revenue was $2,738. So there's now becoming more and more an increasing gap in the difference you can make on service accommodation compared to standard ASTs. What we're finding is it's rates, certain properties in certain areas. Again, you've got to make your data-led decisions. Rates are continuing to grow and grow and grow and grow, where rents are taking a bit longer to increase in comparison with the rates, which is perfect for a rent-to-rent strategy if you're looking to get into it, because it means, you know, your profit's getting bigger and bigger. Information from guest reviews suggests that the number of domestic travelers staying within the UK has decreased. However, the return of international travelers, making way for the return of international travelers. So we're seeing a lot of people traveling over to the UK for holidays, but a lot of people traveling over to the UK also for work. Some of the countries that the top sort of countries that we're seeing traveling into the UK from Airbnb and Booking.com's data are the United States, France, Spain, Germany, and Australia. And just as a golden tip, again, if you have service accommodation properties, you can market your properties to people from these countries and offer discounts, because people who are traveling into the UK tend to stay for a longer period of time, meaning less operational costs. I believe, the average length of stay now in 2023 is around 16 nights. So longer stays as well are increasing massively, which again, great news for us, less operation costs, less cleans.
Absolutely. Okay, so here is the Airbnb Simplified Bootcamp. Now, we did say that we would put an offer on at the end of this for Sunil. He asked us to give you an offer for the Property Millionaires community. So if there's anybody that is looking to, get themselves into serviced accommodation, I would always say get educated. Whether that be by us or by somebody else, it's a strategy that needs education. So what we've built up is a very broken down Airbnb Simplified Bootcamp. We've got 6 modules where we go through individually online. Harry and David do a 2-hour session over a 6-week period, which actually starts tomorrow night.
Yeah.
And we will go through these following modules. So what is serviced accommodation? So that's an introduction to what serviced accommodation is all about, short-term rentals, and it shows you how to sort of take control of a property and make money out of it. So the misconception in property with a lot of property investors is that, or new people that get into property, is that you have to own property. It's not about ownership property, it's about control. So we show you some of the benefits of doing that and some of the benefits around owning your own properties and changing them from, maybe a buy-to-let into serviced accommodation. So that's kind of like a little foundation course about how and what serviced accommodation is. Now, once you know that, you need to understand, and you think you're going to go out and get a property, you need to know what type of areas to look for. So there's one called Find Your Serviced Accommodation Area. That'll teach you how to look for properties and what are the elements that you would look for in a certain town or city or an area that's going to help you succeed in that place. We then go into some more analytic tools. So Analyze Like a Pro is a course where we show you how to use certain data points online, and also give you a tried and tested deal analyzer where you can pump all the numbers in and it gives you an output of what those properties are likely to give you on a monthly basis. Now, when you've got your properties and you know where you're going to invest, you then need to work out how to speak to the right people to get those properties on board, whether it's rent to rent or purchasing properties. We go through a 7-stage sales cycle process where I've built out from my previous career in sales, where it's very difficult once you go into an estate agent or a letting agent for them to say no to you at the end. Because do you know what? We honestly believe that serviced accommodation, when it comes to rent, is the best strategy for a landlord because of all the stuff that we do. Showroom condition, keeping your property, no void periods. There's so many different things within it. Honestly, when I was going out and knocking on letting agents' doors, if they didn't give me a property for some reason, I'd fail because my whole we're the best option for them. Now, once you've got your properties on board and you've been handed the keys, you need to understand how to set up your property in serviced accommodation, and you need to know how to design it, what it needs to look like, what inventory needs to go in there, and we break that down for you from a design perspective and what stuff goes in there.
Yeah, and we're also going to be touching, because I know we may have some questions. There's a bit of uncertainty. People are asking about the compliance around service accommodation at the moment. So we're going to be going into what we're actively doing to get prepared for it all.
And what we've been doing for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Essentially, which isn't any different to the new stuff that's coming in October.
Yeah, just to make sure that you're
compliant.
Yeah.
Okay, so that picks up from a compliancy perspective, what the place looks like. And then last but not least, we go through our Airbnb Simplified and how to launch your property successfully and market it bring business in from the online travel agents like Airbnb, Booking.com, and also creating your own direct booking business so people can go on your website and you don't have to pay those online travel agent fees.
Yeah.
So that's what the courses are all about. So I'm hoping the next slide is the offer, because if it's not, we're going to look really stupid here. No,
It's not. No.
Where is it? Okay, let's go through these first. These are some of our existing mentees that we've had working with us, and students, and some of their properties that they've got. Amanda and Ryan from Orca Property. Amanda was an absolute gem. She did rent to rents. She then built up cash flow, and she's bought about 5 or 6 properties now. I know, 4 properties she's bought, sorry, I've over exaggerated that, off the back of the cash flow that she's gained from her rent to rent portfolio. And you can see she does a great job. And we actually manage these properties for her as well in Chester, because she just wants to have, you know, the wine lifestyle. She's off holidaying all over the place. And she actually retired her husband off the back of the portfolio she built. She actually still works because she likes her job, but she did retire her husband, and he now works on kind of the maintenance side and doing up the properties that they're taking on and developing. Got Jamie's people. I'm sure people will have seen Jamie Marley on Instagram and part of the Clubhouse room, and I'm sure he's in the Property Millionaires room. He's not in the room tonight, is he? I don't know. You might even be in the room tonight. But Jamie is a student of ours who went through a very similar course to the Airbnb Simplified one, online course, and he's built this fantastic portfolio off the back of it. Has he got like 8 properties now?
Yeah, I think so.
Some owned, some rent to rent,
some owned,
managed.
some rent to rent. And
Has he got managed?
Absolutely, no, rent to rent, and owned, absolutely fine. As you can see, again, look gorgeous, they look amazing.
And then Cara, that I went up to see yesterday in Scarborough. We're doing a little series called Your Story. So I went up and did a bit of filming with her yesterday. So if you go on my Instagram or any of my socials, you'll see some of the stuff that I went around with her yesterday. She did a systemization course at the point where she had about 3 or 4 properties. She was struggling to keep on top of everything. She did a systemization course with us, and she's now grown to like 21 properties. We've got Rachel Esho Stays. So Rachel did a one-to-one mentorship with us, and she's grown a property portfolio. Again, started with purchasing, then did some rent-to-rents, and she's bought a couple of properties again. And she is over in Coventry and Gloucester, and she's got a fantastic brand behind her business as well. Her and her husband put that together. Yeah, really proud that she's put all this together. Where's this bloody offer? Ashley at Heartland Properties, so another one of our students. He's got, I think, touching on 30 odd properties now. Again, a mix of rent to rents, managed, and owned properties too. There it is. Thinking I knew that was ever coming. Okay, so here's the offer for you guys. And this is webinar only, or Property Millionaires offer only. You got the link to
yeah,
the link to be able
now, sorry.
We'll put the link in the chat. Now this actually starts tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, is it?
Yeah, 6 o'clock. So as Dave mentioned, we'll be doing between an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on how long questions take. So what we have found from feedback from, well, other mentees that we've had who have gone on other courses is that they sometimes leave the course with more questions than they started with. So we find a lot of courses give you loads of information. These online courses give you loads of information and then let you on your merry way. We're going to be there live running you through the courses so that if you have any questions, at the end, we do a Q&A and you can ask questions.
One of the other things to be aware of online as well is the ChatGPT courses that people have kind of gone on and written a course off the back of ChatGPT. With this strategy, being present and current and understanding what to do going forward, not looking backwards, really important. So ChatGPT will only look at stuff from 2 years ago. It's not the right things to be doing right now. So we've got 6 modules. They'll be delivered on a weekly basis over six live sessions. They'll be delivered by Harry and David. our other business partner, and they're just £49 per week. So to get all that knowledge, we'd normally sell these. I don't remember how much we used to sell these courses for. It scares me now. Yeah, but yeah, you wouldn't pick this up for less than about £3,500 going back. So £49 a session. We want to share this with as many people as we possibly can, and we want to get as many people into this fantastic strategy as we possibly can. So Harry's going to put the
Slack.
It's in what?
It's on Slack. So just copy
All right,
paste it
yeah.
in.
So I'll put the link into the chat now. If you are interested in that, click the link. You'll have a little pop-up box. Get rid of that, and then go in, put your details in. £49 a session. So that's 49 times
6,
times
294 plus VAT.
plus VAT. £294 plus VAT. Where did you put it? Yeah, let me just copy. Everybody's got their fingers ready to buy it. Where do I put it in here?
Yeah.
There you go. So everyone, just give me a thumbs up in the chat to show me that you've got that link in there, just to make sure it's gone in. Everyone's gone. Anybody there? Yeah, you got it. There we go. There we go. Right. We're all in. Good stuff. Right. I think that brings us to the work with us. So go on, Harry.
Okay. So work with us. So as mentioned, we do offer a few other ways that people can work with us. So we do constantly take on rent-to-rents ourselves. We don't just obviously teach it. So if you guys are looking for a guaranteed rent for your properties with no maintenance or void periods, let us know. We'd be happy to have a look if the property works for us. It would obviously have to work for us and you. Make sure it's a win-win situation, but we'd be happy to
Not that I want to point out spelling mistakes.
It's not my spelling mistake.
We don't do no maintenance, well, it's maintenance,
Leave
not
that.
maintenance.
Leave
Nobody
that.
would have seen that, would
No.
they, if I hadn't said.
Again, if you have properties and you're looking to increase your revenue by putting your property on service accommodation, but don't want the headache, we do professional service accommodation management. So we are the largest independent SA operator in Chester. And as mentioned, we do operate across the UK. So again, let us know. We can have a look if it's something that we consider, if you want to work with us and put your property on service accommodation, but don't want the hassle. We also offer, so it's just worth mentioning, we also offer great fixed returns on your money. So if you've got some money and you're looking to invest it, but don't want the hassle of property, you just want a fixed return, we do offer 8 to 12% on your money by investing into an SA project. And as mentioned previously, we do joint venture partnerships with us, depending on what who the person, the people
It's
are.
got to be the right people.
But yeah, that's some of the ways that you guys can work with us if interested.
Okay, right. So I think we'll kind of open up to questions now, and maybe make this a bit bigger so we can see everybody. How do you do that?
Stop sharing.
Is that? Yes, we'll open up to questions. Now, anybody got any questions?
Quick question. With regards to, say, where you have a mortgage company who may not necessarily want you to be doing Airbnb.
Yeah.
I've been told that if you set up a management company, you can still do it and then pay into your normal account as a normal rental, so they get rental, and any profit is sort of utilized in a different way. Is that a way that you guys have done?
That's called fraud.
Is it?
I'd say so, yes. If they don't want you running serviced accommodation from that property, then what I'd suggest is that you just don't do it.
Okay, but a lot of mortgage companies don't often want that unless you have a specialized mortgage for that.
And do you know what? A lot don't, but a lot do. So you want to get express written permission from that particular company if to do serviced accommodation under an existing buy-to-let mortgage. you definitely need to make sure that you're crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's with that. I would never, ever tell anybody, if it's part of their terms and conditions, not to do it, to do it. So what you're talking about there is a way of getting around it somehow, but I would say that would be fraud.
Okay. And what about so where you, I mean, this is another thing. So some people were telling me only yesterday, or a lady, that you've got a different platform. So Airbnb being one, Booking.com being another, but there might be other platforms where you may have agencies or you may have company lets essentially. Now, is that, I mean, what platforms would that be particularly, that who would specialize in those company lets? So you have someone that might want to come stay for like 2 months or 3 months, but it's not like an Airbnb. It's not like, you might, because Airbnb, you can have a situation where every couple of days you can have someone, but you may not also have people. So if
you're looking for longer stays, because you want them, as you mentioned, over a 2 or 3 month period, there's a few ways that, well, as you mentioned, there are lots of other companies. So Silverdoor, Situ, there's lots of accommodation providers,
Comfy Workers.
Yeah.
There's loads of what we call SA agencies out there that they will provide you with longer term stays. Or of course you can do that through your own marketing and your own direct booking website, and get the longer stays in yourself. There's lots of ways of doing that, lots of different ways of doing it. Probably the best way of doing it, or the quickest way of doing it when you're starting out or trying to get in, is to get in touch with the agencies. The only problem is when you go to the agencies, if you've got one property in an area, they generally want you to have a minimum amount. Can be 3, can be 5, depending on the company that you go to. So people like Situ, Silverdoor, Comfy Workers, the way around kind of getting them on board is to, if you get into a new area, is to get networking with your local area and offer more properties up than just the 1 or 2 that you might have.
Yeah, and right. I'd also add to that, if you can still, if you're looking for longer term bookings, you can still use Airbnb, Booking.com and VRBO. You can just set from your pricing manager, or if dynamic pricing tool, a minimum stay of maybe 30 days, but just be mindful that you need to price it at a competitive rate on a monthly basis. Don't be having a massive nightly rate and putting a long minimum stay and expecting to achieve that.
I see. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, I think I'll let other people ask some questions now. So,
perfect. Thanks for your question.
Any more questions? Anybody else got anything that they want to ask? Put your hand up. Oh, the baby asked. Oh, Rachel. Hiya, Rachel. Oh, you there, Rachel? How are you doing? No. Anybody else got any questions? Pam, she's put her hand up.
I just wanted to know, if I have a property and for you to take on, do you do the work, or I have to bring it to standard before you take it on, please?
Yeah, it would need to be to standard. So essentially the properties that we manage will be coming out under the sort of no key umbrella, which would reflect, I mean, if there's any issues, it reflects straight on our Airbnb, Booking.com review scores, and sometimes even, Google reviews. So the property has to meet a minimum standard for us to take it on, so that we know it's not going to affect the brand image.
So the answer to that question really, Pam, is it depends, right? So if we're taking it on management and we're going to manage that property for you, it needs to be at a certain standard before we will take that on. Because again, like Harry said, we're putting our name against it. If it was a rent to rent, we might look at it slightly differently, depending on the rental terms. If it needed some cosmetic changes in the property, we might take that on and do them with a rent-free period at the beginning. It depends, really. Any sort of, there's always a deal to be had. There's always a conversation to be had. So yeah, it can depend.
Okay, thank you.
There's also questions in the chat.
Oh, is there? Plenty of questions in the chat. Let's have a look. Keep going. Go right to the top. Oh wow. Right, keep going. Go right to the top and we'll go down.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, you want to grab
Yeah.
Only if it's quick.
that? No.
Quick. So if you've got a 4-bedroom with 1 toilet, is that ideal? Or I mean, most properties you find are like about 3 bedrooms with 1 toilet, which probably a living room you can convert. Or so is that ideal for this kind of properties? Because if people are sharing, would they want more than 1 convenience?
Great question. So generally, when we have a 4-bedroom property, whether it's contractors or families, they want more than one bathroom. They'll generally want a minimum of 2 in a 4-bedroom property. So yeah, you just need to start thinking about that. There are times when you know, people will. I'm trying to think, have we got a 4-bedroom property with just 1? No, we haven't. We haven't got any with 1 bathroom, have we?
Panto?
No, that's 2.
Oh yeah.
It's 2.
Yeah. No.
No, so we haven't got any, and I would assume that generally when people come to us looking for 4-bedroom houses, they generally want 2 or 3 bedrooms. That's 2 or 3 bathrooms in those properties, and you know, obviously, because that's convenience in the morning. If you've got 6 people trying to get ready and there's 1 bathroom, it can be a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, and what I'd also add to that is, if you are, considering taking that property and putting it into service accommodation, you're going to do, as mentioned, a bit of analysis on the property. Make sure you're comparing it with other 4 bedrooms that have 1 bathroom, because otherwise the data will be a bit misleading.
Sorry, I just need a bit of clarity. So when you rent it to contractors, do you rent it as 1-to-1? I mean, how do I explain it?
1 house. So do we do it by the room or do we do it by the house? Is that what you're asking? It's always by the house. Always by the house.
Even if they're contractors sharing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, look, I mean, other people do it by the room, but it's just not something we choose. It can be a lot more.
Earlier on, you mentioned something about them paying maybe £50 per room or something, or £60 per room. So that made me think it was per room. Or are you just saying they'll share it at?
Yeah, when we say sell it by the room at £50 a room on a 4-bedroom house, £200 a night, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're doing it to different contractors that don't know each other. It's always contractors that know each other that take it on as a unit. Make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense now.
Cool. So, question for you there, mate.
Dave, can you talk about how you are tackling council tax business rates on these apart hotels? How you are managing the council tax situation when the rateable value goes beyond 15,000 across your portfolio? Right. Okay. So when you're looking at the rateable value, it only applies to the first property. You don't kind of split it across your portfolio. You can't. So if you've got like a single unit and then another single unit, it only applies to the first property. I haven't had a property yet in my portfolio that's gone beyond 15,000. It's not happened for 1 property. So it's not like a cumulative thing that you do over multiple properties. It only applies to the first property that you put it on. Hopefully that makes sense. What else have we got? Hi Dave, would you recommend sorry, I'm just muttering away here. Would you recommend for SA multi-block to be used for SA in some areas? That might mean saturation and in turn decreased occupancy. Great question. Okay, so I'm going to use the D word again. It depends, Cameron, and thank you very much for asking the question. That's a great question. So if you're going into an area and you are going to put, in a specific area, you're going to put 10 apartments in there or 50 apartments or whatever that might be, that could saturate the market. So you need to understand how to not just look at what's happening now and what's happened previously, but also look at what's going to happen forecasted going forward, which is a piece of KPI called
RevPAR.
Explain RevPAR, please.
Okay, so on RevPAR revenue.
Try not to make everyone fall asleep.
I
Harry.
know.
It's late.
So RevPAR is the revenue per available unit. So essentially, what we're looking revenue per available rental in service accommodation, we call it. So essentially, what we're looking at is how much are people spending in the current marketplace, and what is the occupancy across all properties. And if we were to split that evenly, how much would each property essentially get? Now, if the amount each property is getting over a period of time is increasing, that could indicate an emerging market. If it is decreasing, that could indicate a saturated market. And if it's stable, it may mean that the market's just about to drop. So it's a really, really important KPI that can be sometimes quite difficult to get your head around, but it's what the sort of big
Hotel
boys, the
market,
hotels use. So it's really important you take notice of it.
So a good indicator of that, if you don't want to go and actually work out RevPAR, is if you can see, people like Premier Inn, Travel Lodge building hotels in certain areas. So that's a really good indicator that it's an emerging market rather than I just made it dead simple.
You did, yeah.
Don't thank me.
Yeah. You still need to understand RevPAR as well. Don't just look at, are they building Premier Inns in the area? Please. Data-led decisions, Christ.
All right, okay. Did you use AI for interior
No, we
design?
use DI.
No, we use DI, David Ince.
Yeah.
He'd go mad if you just said if he was here and read that, he'd absolutely go mental about that, Grace. So thank you for that.
One last question, sorry, if you don't mind me. And you talked about the condition. So you talked about your reputation. So if you think about hotels, right, you've got 5-star, 4-star, 3-star, 2-star, 1-star. Now, obviously, you may say, oh, aim for 5-star, but then the premium would be 5-star premium. If you go for 2-star, for example, then okay, it's functional, it's clean, it's all right, but I can't charge high rates. I can charge this rate. So you have different categories of people for different types of properties. Yeah. So surely you as an individual say, okay, I don't want to spend 20,000 on this to refurb it, but I want to spend 5. It looks clean, it's functional. Someone can get in there. It's not mucky, it's not disgusting. It's good enough, but they're not paying £100 a night. They're paying you £80 a night. What would be the challenge with that in terms of reputation and everything else?
Okay, so it literally depends.
Question.
Yeah, it literally depends on multiple things. So what we like to do when we're entering a new market or in our current market is analyze our customer avatar. So who are the types of people that are going to be staying at the property? What do they need? What are they searching for on Airbnb and Booking.com? And as you mentioned, what is the spec? What's the level of the property that they require? What's the maximum? When does it get too far? You find some of your luxury properties, contractors don't want to stay in them because they can be afraid if they break it, they're going to be charged an arm and a leg. So we have a look at where that sort of ballpark is. Yeah.
So who's staying at your property? What's the avatar of that type customer base? And look, there's no point in going into a market of luxury with whether it's heavily contractor, because you're going to spend a lot of money on developing a property and it's going to be wasted. There's a sweet spot where you can get, we call it like a Japandi style, where it's kind of Japanese, Scandinavian influence, where it's kind of, it sits well with both markets. You'll get people that will go there for a leisure break. It looks really nice, but you'll also get, it's not too over the top for like contractors and business days too. So there is a level, and you're right. So, great question. Ken. It's Ken that's speaking, isn't it?
It's Ken, yeah. But it sounds like, and the reason why I'm asking this question is I'm actually in the mix of trying to convert BTL into that. And so I've been looking at, and I'm in like the Mason area, and I'm looking, I'm thinking, well, there's different types of people. I know people who do contractors only, which is fair enough. But when I see the property, it looks good, but it's not like exceptional. But then I also place myself when I go somewhere like France, Bordeaux, or Spain, and I can. There's 2-star hotels. There's that, and you pay for what you get. Do you know what I mean? So and if you got a right clientele, right, you might pay this, but if you're not, you might pay that. So I'm just trying to trying to understand it. Yeah.
So the key to this is not getting emotional about it, Ken. And not putting your exacting standards on it and what you think is right. Always look at the data and let the data make the decision off the back of where it needs to be.
So where are you getting the data points from? Are you using just Airbnb and go, okay, who are the clientele, and go, here's the data points, these are the type of people that stay, or is
join our Airbnb
okay, fair enough.
And we will show you everything on that.
So what
how's that?
So what I'll say, just on your do you get the data by going on Airbnb and looking? A lot of people try and determine the occupancy and average daily night for a certain month based off just looking at Airbnb. You're actually looking at properties that aren't booked because they're available for the dates you're looking at. And occupancy wise, you never know why that property has been blocked out. It could be someone who does this part-time on the weekends and only takes weekend stays. So don't go on Airbnb and have a look at other properties.
Don't be manual about it.
Yeah. Okay.
And what's next?
So
hopefully that has answered all your questions, Ken.
I think it has, because as I said, I'm in a mix of trying to get to that point where I'm looking, okay, I want to do this, I want to try it, otherwise just stick to my normal BTL, which is painless for you. I've been doing it for 20 years, but right now the market's changed so much. How do you make it work a bit better, if that makes sense? So yeah.
So next question from Anthony: do you get pushed up the rankings as operators, or because of the performance of the individual property? Great question.
Yeah, so it's
a bit of both.
Yeah, it's a mixture. So you get boosted up based on your history as an operator, but you also get heavily boosted up based on the performance of the individual listing. So reviews are a heavy impact. It was up until last quarter, very, very heavily reviews. It's actually, again, gone to more of what the daily rate is as well, because Airbnb started off to be a cost-effective alternative to hotels. They deteriorated for that and just optimized their listings based on the amount of reviews that they had. And they've now come back to their senses and included average daily rates.
Might be worth telling people how we know that information, insightful information.
Yeah.
How do we know this stuff?
So we're quite blessed. I always say blessed because it feels like a blessing most of the time, well, all the time. We've got account managers with Airbnb and Booking.com. So when you get to a sort of a certain size, you can have an account manager with.
And we pick their brains on a monthly basis, and they give us all the insights of the new stuff that they're developing within their their algorithms and stuff like that, so we can get ahead of the curve and put them on our listings before it happens.
Yeah. Same with Booking.com as well.
What are your figures for Folkestone? We went through them.
Yeah,
60% was the occupancy. Craig, hi Craig, good to see you, buddy. What would the typical uplift be for a landlord who gave up a standard 3-bedroom buy-to-let house to your firm to be
used as asset? It depends on the area.
It depends on the area.
Depends on multiple things.
Do you know what, Craig? It could be less. Could be less. There's properties where we'll advise clients to keep it as buy-to-let, because they'll make more doing buy-to-let than they will on serviced accommodation. And then, it can be twice as much, it can be 3 times as much, or it can be half the amount. Yeah. It very much depends on the area and all the stuff that we've talked about previously tonight. Purchase lease option. With the part hotels, do you man them 24 hours like a reception? Some and some. So some we've got Rachel. Rachel's on tonight, who was one of our students. Thank you for putting the question in. So yeah, some and some. The Apart Hotel in Folkestone is manned. We've got somebody that stays there full time, but then some of the smaller ones we don't. The Apart Hotel that we're building in Llandudno, I don't plan to man that one. We're going to try and be as hands off as possible with, and put lots of technology in there to be hands off. But yeah, some and some on that, Rachel. Do landlords need to have a special mortgage product to enable you to perform a rent-to-rent on their properties? And we've covered that already, haven't we?
I've covered that.
What if
That
your
was
property? Yeah, we've
Ken's.
done that. What are your thoughts on what Airbnb have done in New York? I'm not quite sure what they've done in New York. Do you know what they've done in New York?
I'll have to have a look into that, Rachel. I have to have a look into that. What permissions do you need to get from
Council to do SA.
Sorry.
You don't. You don't, essentially, at this moment in time. True.
Well,
Yeah. Does an Airbnb, does an SA bought in a limited company name qualify as commercial property that could be financed with? Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
you didn't finish that sentence.
Financed via a SaaS. Yes, it does. They can be. We've got properties that are being financed via a SaaS.
That was
Are you
fine.
finding that contractors are demanding more bathrooms when sharing property? Yes, they are. The contractors generally, it's few and far between that'll share rooms, and they want more bathrooms because they don't want to be sharing a 4-bedroom house with one bathroom. They have needs. There's the link, just in case anybody hasn't seen it, to book on the course. 8. Okay, keep going.
Is it 8 to 12% per annum?
Yes, it is. So it's 8 to 12% per annum.
You design the property, you take on, or the land has to do it. So, I mean,
Some and some.
yeah,
Again, some and some, said that quite a few times as
Yeah,
well.
yes.
Or it depends.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll do a bit of both, really. We'll have landlords that hand the properties over to us that are already done and ready to go, and we just get handed the keys, put it into our existing infrastructure, and away it goes. Some landlords need a bit of guidance. A lot of landlords that we work with like us to go in, give them a bit of a design, show them how it's done, show them how to do all the inventory. Yeah, we have a bit of both there.
So what criteria do you use to find out if a rent-to-rent property is going to be worthwhile? Again, depends. It depends on what you mean by worthwhile. Something that may be worthwhile to you may not be worthwhile to us, or vice versa. So it really depends on your investing criteria. I'd focus in on your return on investment. I'd also say if you're looking at a managed property, a management rent to rent, you don't want to be looking at less than 500-600
quid net,
a month. Yeah, net.
It's not worth doing.
If you're managing yourself, you want to have a look at over £1,000 profit on a rent to rent per month. And then, as I mentioned,
that's our criteria.
Yeah, that's our criteria.
That doesn't necessarily mean that it wouldn't work for anybody else, but that's what we put on it. We wouldn't take anything on if it didn't do that, would we?
No. And I, as Dave said, your criteria is what's most important. So just have a look at it on a return on investment basis and work out whether it's worthwhile for you that way.
There are lenders that will allow you to rent a property as SA property. Yes, there are. What about new fire regs coming out? Is that the landlord's? It's absolutely. It depends. Yes, it is the landlord's responsibility. So essentially it comes back to you. So the kind of how the properties are laid out and what the compliance within them is down to the landlord. It'll fall back on you. But if you get a decent operating company, like us, for example, we'll go in and do the risk assessment. We'll actually do most of the fire stuff ourselves. We've got, head housekeeper that goes around. She's trained to do fire risk assessments and get the properties onboarded. The new regs that are coming in, we've been doing for the last 18 months. We've been working with council with some of the fire departments, and this isn't new to us. When the new regulations come out and said that they were coming in October, we were like, well, we're actually we're a bit of over the top on most of our properties, which it's a good place to be. Sorry, can't speak, baby crying. I remember those calls, Rachel. I remember those Zoom calls.
Do you do more 4-bed or 3-bed houses, and do you need 2 bathrooms for 3 beds as well? So no,
We have got 3 beds with one.
yeah, you can get away, but again, it depends on your market. Do we do more 4-bed, 3-bed houses? We're looking at larger stuff at the moment, but that may not be what you want
Need
to
in
do.
your area.
Yeah,
It's all down
so
to the analysis.
yeah, it's all down to the data.
Is your course offer available for any time other than the course is starting tomorrow? If I join tomorrow, I'll miss 3. Yeah, we could. We're running these courses every 6 weeks. So if you can't join tomorrow night, you can join. We can either join on to the week after and do the 5 weeks and then the 1 week at the end, or you can join the 6 weeks when we start the process again, right?
Yeah, and look, all these courses are recorded, so you can catch up as well. Is that it? That is it.
Thank you, Dave and Harry. Very informative. Thanks to Sunil for hosting too. No problem, Cameron. Appreciate it. A gent as always. What are the main regs coming in October? Oh, I haven't got time to go. I can't be. If you go on and look at, well, go online. It tells you all on there. Look at the paying guests. If you look at the regulations for paying guests at a property, go on to the government website, and it'll give you a list of all the stuff that you need to do. If I was to sit here and bore I know it's almost bedtime, but if I was to sit here and bore everybody with those regulations now, I'd probably not be friends with everybody. Okay.
I think that's, yeah.
I think that covers everything. So one last chance, if anybody wants to put a hand up and ask any questions before we close off the room, feel free to do so.
Dan's got one.
Who? Dan.
Yeah.
Dan.
Oh, yeah.
Daniel, how rude of me to call you, shorten your name without asking. Dan.
Don't mind, don't worry about it. Quick question. I know you mentioned rent to rents. Obviously, mortgages, there's certain stipulations about renting it out, and also there are stipulations in leases too for apartments. So when you're approaching the rent to rents, what do you do about that? Some people obviously kind of brush over it and say it's the landlord's responsibility, and others so it would be interesting to know what you do about it.
So look, I'll take the mortgage one first. Everything has to be above board. Okay, so you have to check with the mortgage company. If you're taking a rent to rent on from a client, then they need to check with their mortgage company that they will allow it. If they don't, it can't be done. Simple as that. On the leases, similar thing goes. So if the lease doesn't allow it, you don't do it. We've had lease property where the lease has said no. We've then gone and got express permission from the management company and the freeholder of the lease. And we've gone in there, we've set up serviced accommodation. The neighborhood don't like it. And they've gone back and rescinded, and we've had to move out because it was just too much hassle. So for us, we tend to try, and if we're going to go for lease property, it's more like we go for the block and we go for the freeholder where there's no sort of nosy neighbours curtain twitching, or we go for freehold properties.
With the blocks, when it's an individual property and you're looking to take it on as a rent to rent, from the ones that you've come across so far, in regards to the stipulation in the lease, how common, like percentage wise, do you actually see it versus not being in there?
It depends on when the lease was written. So because serviced accommodations are a relatively new thing, there's kind of a bit of a grey area in where it's written into a lease about running a business from the property. So it's a bit of a grey area that some people will take the risk on. We personally don't. We're very much P for plenty when it comes to stuff like this. But in terms of it, again, it depends on the area. Like if it's a newer build and people are switched on to serviced accommodation, they'll have something in there that tells you can't do it. They'll also have stuff stipulated in the leases as well that you can do it in certain areas. So if you go to a lot of seaside towns where they're beachfronts or something like that, the leases generally allow stuff like that. And people that are going in and out for holiday homes, they understand that. It's when you get, maybe in a city where you've got a residential block and you've got, residency in there, and you're trying to mix that with serviced accommodation. That sometimes doesn't work. A lot of the time doesn't work.
Okay. One last question, if I may. In regards to obviously doing a quick desktop appraisal on if a apartment will work as serviced accommodation, are you able to do that without specialty tools, just to get a quick indication? Because I know you touched upon it briefly that the ones that are on the market.
Harry's absolutely fuming inside now. I can see him.
No,
I can see him bubbling up. A quick and dirty.
Yeah. I mean,
that's a good way to summarize it. Yeah, quick.
You want to do a quick and dirty on something? Look, I think I'll answer this, and then Harry will take over. So look, if you're an experienced operator like us, you can probably look at a property and go, right, what's the rent? What do we think the cost is going to be? Is that going to work? But that's because we've got years and years of experience behind us. But if you're a new person that's getting into this, you need to understand how to analyze stuff properly. Okay, because serviced accommodation, short-term rentals, Airbnb can be the most lucrative strategy. We showed you some of the numbers previously, and it can make you loads of money. But if you get it wrong, it will zap so much cash from your account that will break you very, very quickly. So doing quick and dirties and stuff like that when you're just starting out is definitely not the right way to go. And I've seen it so many times from new people that are getting into the market, don't understand it, don't do their numbers properly, and get it wrong.
Yeah.
Get it really wrong.
I think one of the main issues that I see when people try and do it without sort of the software is they tend to compare their property against properties that are different. Your property may never meet that standard, and
they always pick the biggest numbers.
Yeah.
So they'll go on and they'll go,
invest.
right,
yeah,
that property there does £500 a night. Well, that's been running for the last 10 years.
Yeah. And so you need to use, especially if you're starting out, you need to use the professional tools and software to take the emotion out of it. I mean, again, I speak to so many people who show me their properties and I think it'll do this much a night, and all they're thinking about in their mind is how amazing their property is going to look when all the photos are done, and how it's going to make them loads of money. Where in reality, there's no demand for it. So the professional tools allow you to take the emotion out of it and properly analyze. If you're not doing it that way and just doing a quick desktop, have a look at what on Airbnb, what nightly rates people are charging. It's just, you're not being specific. You're not analyzing really. You're just guessing.
Yeah, I think it was mainly to just get an indication really, and then if it does look like it would be viable, then obviously go down the route of doing the tools and that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's why when you mentioned quick and dirty, I thought that's a perfect summary for it. So
it may be that, and this comes into it. It may be that the area doesn't even work, and you're going through loads of different properties that you're looking at, and the actual area doesn't work. So you need to start off with finding out if the area works and using professional tools first, whether there's saturation in that market before you start going through your properties anyway. And you can only really get to that by looking at professional tools. That makes sense.
Okay, right.
Can I ask the quick question?
Oh, God.
Yeah, no.
Sorry, I'm really sorry.
Yeah, you're not that sorry.
So,
will they ask anything, would you?
Oh dear. Right, it'll be very quick. So basically, what you were just talking about, to me, is the thing that I want to know the most. Do you have anything which is just that? Because that's all I want to know right now. Is just all that, like a course material, anything which is just about that area only. That's all.
So yeah, go on to our website and look for find your SA area. It'll actually cost more than what that course we've just put up there will cost you.
Yeah. So
Really? What?
as Dave mentioned, we have sold all these courses before and other sort of boot camps at a lot higher price. One of the reasons we've one of the reasons we offering this for so cheap is we actually do want to help loads of people. When I started off in property, spent quite a bit of money on education.
Harry more than me, to be honest.
Yeah. Quite a lot of money on education. And what dawned on me is it's incredibly hard for people my age to get started. So this is kind of a giving back sort of thing that we're doing, not really.
So if you were to go onto our website and buy that particular course called Find Your SA Area, it would actually cost you more than what the course is we're selling here. That'll give you all of it, all the bits.
Right. Okay.
That shows you the value that we've put together on this offer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
So hit the link. Hit the link. Oh dear. Right. Have we got any more questions? No, that's great. Thank you very much for. I'm just joking. Any more questions? Going once. Oh, there's somebody. Brian, is that you leaning forward, ready to press the button? No, lean back. Lean back. No. Right. No, listen, guys, it's been a pleasure being able to run through our businesses and go through our serviced accommodation journey and what we've put together, and be able to give, hopefully you've got a little bit of knowledge tonight. One thing I would ask, if possible, right there. Hang on. Yeah, we need to put social media up. No, I've done that, have we? Where is it? Oh, what am I doing? What are you trying to do? I'm trying to get the social media thing up. This is your job. This is your job, mate. Hang on. Where is it? Where's the social media one? There. Right. So one thing I will ask for everybody to do for us is, if you've got value tonight and you've enjoyed the webinar, if you haven't, then please don't post on social media that it's been crap, but please post on social media. Go onto your preferred channel. We've got Instagram, we've got our Airbnb Simplified community, we've got LinkedIn, we've got the lot. So whatever's your preferred channel, take a picture of the screen now with us all on here, and just put on there that you've had a great time with us this evening. That'd be really appreciated. We'd really appreciate that, because the more kind of reach we get, the more growth we get. Harry gets to share with more people and get people into this fantastic strategy.
Cool.
That'd be great.
Really enjoyed it all. And yeah,
so that's at us. Dave Goodfellow Official on Instagram, or at Harry Airbnb on Instagram, or one of the others. Everyone done that? Can I just get a thumbs up? It was just get a thumbs up from everybody in the chat, or a thumbs up just on the thing, just to see if you enjoyed that and it was worthwhile coming on this evening. Good stuff. Excellent. Nods and thumbs all over the place. Right. Okay. We're gonna leave it there then. Is anybody actually on that's who's the person that was?
It's Dan, is
it Dan?
Dan?
Yeah, Sunil's had to jump off, so
okay.
No worries, mate.
All right, so we'll
thanks
close
for
it
that,
down.
Harry and Dave. Fantastic, really informative.
No problem. Hopefully everybody's got something out of that. And yeah, we'll catch up soon. We'll be back on Clubhouse on Friday morning. Yeah, you're not there. Why aren't you there?
I'm not there.
Skiver.
I'm not there. I'm not available.
Skiver. One day we give you on there. One day, and you can't even
for 3 years.
Can't even turn up. Right. Anyway, thanks everybody. Have a great evening. See you later. Good night.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers all.